of that, harnessed herself into a giant bird cage suspended 10 feet in the air in front of the Old Bailey. Mr. Assange is currently in jail. His extradition hearing is due to resume in September. And let's talk to Dame Vivienne now. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for talking to us. Why do you support Julian Assange?
Because he's got to be let out of his cage and he cannot be extradited to America for his own sake, because he'll be embedded in a concrete jail for the rest of his life, but also because he really is the canary in the cage, which I'm blessed up to be, because I am Julian Assange. And it is a signal for the American government to arrest anybody they like for publishing the truth. And once they do it, then that will be worldwide. And if they're going to arrest Julian Assange for publishing war crimes, which were the truth, then they've got to arrest The Guardian, the New York Times, the Spiegel, everybody that also co-published this information.
But if that's how the sorry to interrupt, if that's how the system Dame Vivienne, if that's how the system really worked, then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of journalists would be in jail, and they're not. The reason the US wants him to go back to America, they say, is because he tried to hack into a US Department of Defense computer system.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that if they arrest him, then they ought to also arrest the other people. But you're saying it's particularly because he's a hacker. Now then, what Americans are doing all the time is that they are fitting him up. They are inventing charges and fit them to him. He's a hacker, so they're charging him with hacking, you know? And that's got nothing to do with anything, because all their charges are worded so as to tick the box. You are guilty because you are guilty. Tick the box. You are a hacker, therefore you are a hacker, aren't you? Yes, guilty. I mean, this is the way they are dealing with this case.
But a trial would decide whether he is guilty or not. If he's not, then he can go to America and defend himself.
Yes, so he could from his concrete jail. Now then, but you are assuming that he is the subject of due legal process. And the abuse of due legal process in his particular case is so bad that if he had been a murderer or a drug dealer, it would have been thrown out of court. And you've got to allow me to tell you exactly what has been happening.
Well, can I just ask you a question, if I may? I mean, you mentioned The Guardian, the New York Times, Le Monde. Those were... Vivienne, there's no point in us both talking because no one can hear us.
All his private discussions with his lawyers were bugged in the embassy by the security firm, and they were fed to the CIA on a daily basis.
How on earth do you know that? How on earth would you know that?
Due process. How do we know that? Because there was a court in Spain, and you got to do your homework, darling. It happened in Spain.
Can I ask you a question now? Please.
The firm were told that that's what they had been doing.
Okay, you mentioned The Guardian, you mentioned the New York Times. The Guardian, the New York Times, El País, Der Spiegel, Le Monde, who had all worked with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks previously, publishing carefully selected and redacted documents, absolutely condemned his publishing of unredacted cables, which it's alleged put some informants' lives at risk. Do you have any qualms about Mr. Assange dumping thousands of cables on the internet, which could put some people in danger?
Julian Assange, what happened is that all his stuff was redacted, but The Guardian had the code for the unredacted documents, and they published that code number. And then after that, Julian Assange decided also to release it because he thought all those people whose lives were in danger should be warned about it.
The Guardian say that's absolute nonsense.
Campaigned against him. They
Right.
became his enemy because they were the culprit.
The Guardian say that's absolute nonsense that they did that. Let me ask you again, do you have any qualms about Julian Assange dumping thousands of cables on the internet which allegedly put some people's lives in danger?
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
You want him in concrete, don't you? All the media, they are just such morons, such spin, brainwashed people. And you're one of them.
Thank you very much for talking to us today. Thank you, Dame Vivienne Westwood, who is a supporter of Julian.
Get me out of the cage.
Get me out of the cage, I think were her last words. Now, remember at the start of lockdown,